You guys give me a 3, 2, 1.
Good evening. Welcome to the Reston Association's 2025 Board of Directors Candidate Forum for the at-large and North Point District seats. I'm Katie Boswell. I'm the Vice Chair of the Reston Association's Election Committee. On behalf of the committee, I want to thank everyone for attending tonight. In this election, members will vote for 2 Reston Association board seats, 1 at-large director seat and 1 North Point director seat, both for 3-year terms. The election will begin on Friday, February 28th at 5 p.m. and will close Monday, March 31st at 5 p.m. Please allow enough time for your ballot to be mailed or delivered on time. Members have the option to cast their votes online or by mail. Although both seats in this election are uncontested, a quorum of 10% of the membership is still required for each person or each open seat on the board in order for the election results to be considered valid. So please make sure you cast your vote. As a non-stock Virginia corporation, RA requires a board of directors. RA members elect the board in turn. The board is responsible to the members for setting policy, evaluating the CEO, and approving the budget. These duties and responsibilities, among others, are included in the RA's governing documents. This evening, we will have an opportunity to learn about each candidate's stance on various community issues. The Elections Committee has already received questions in advance, which will be posed to the candidates this evening. If you would like to ask a question during tonight's session, please submit your question via Facebook live chat feature if you're joining us from Facebook, or if you're joining us in person tonight, you may come up to the podium when we ask for questions from the floor. Due to limited time for tonight's forum, we will address as many questions as possible. We will start with the questions submitted in advance, and if time permits, take additional questions from the floor and through Facebook Live. Philip Williams, our social media specialist, will monitor the Facebook Live feed for these questions. Candidates will have 5 minutes to make their opening remarks. Once each candidate has made their opening remark, we'll begin with the question and answer portion of this evening.
Candidates are listed in order according to the 2025 certified candidates list, and will take turns answering questions. For opening remarks, we will begin with at-large candidate.
All right.
And your time, Katie's going to give you the cue when your time will start. Your time starts now.
All right. Well, good evening, everybody. I'm Matthew Mullenix. I'm honored to be running for the at-large seat here in Reston Association for the Board of Directors. I want to first give my thanks to the Election Committee for hosting the event tonight, my fellow candidate, Michael Lanza, my family who joins us here in the room, and most importantly, the members who are here tonight and at home watching this online. I appreciate the opportunity to tell you a little bit about myself, my goals, and why I'm seeking your vote. I'm relatively new to Reston, but I've lived in the Northern Virginia communities for about 20 years. My wife and I are frequent users of the many amenities here, like the courts, trails, lakes, pools, and the open spaces. But more importantly, we have 2 young kids growing up here and a vested interest in getting involved to preserve what makes Reston special for future generations. Experience-wise, I have served 4 years on community associations boards with similar but smaller set of amenities. I also have 10 years supporting public company boards and committees. These experiences have given me a strong understanding of governance, fiscal oversight, and long-term planning, skills that are essential as Reston navigates challenges ahead. Reston is a special place, I think we can all agree, but it's also at a critical point. The association faces rising costs driven by inflation, aging infrastructure that must be planned for over decades, and ongoing development pressures. Thankfully, we have a highly capable management team and staff of professionals that do amazing work to address the issues of the day and plan for the future. But they need the support, guidance, and strategic input from the community through the Board of Directors to shape this future. If elected, I will prioritize fiscal responsibility, investments in our infrastructure, and preserving open spaces. and improving member engagement. Our members deserve a board that listens, responds, and makes decisions with community input at the forefront. I look forward to tonight's discussion and earning your support. Thank you.
Good evening, all. My name is Michael Lanza, and I'm running for the North Point Board of Directors seat. I'm running for the seat to serve the community and build upon the accomplishments of the past 60 years of Reston. Reston has been a model to other communities throughout the Commonwealth and country due to our great amenities, emphasis on open space preservation, and our live, work, and play atmosphere. Over the past few years, I have had the honor of serving the community through the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee. During this span, we saw the tremendous success of the community survey and have been striving to implement the desires of the community. I am a local professional civil engineer specializing in land development, planning, and zoning in Fairfax County and the surrounding municipalities. My career experience provides a unique perspective on the planning and development process. Environmental stewardship and resource protection are ingrained in my professional and personal decision-making and fundamental to Reston's continued success. As a board member, my primary goals would be pursuing a budget with emphasis on member needs and anticipating future community advancements. I would seek to enhance Reston for everyone. I would defend our beautiful open spaces, natural water amenities, and trails. I would advocate for Reston Association by partnering and collaborating with Fairfax County and prospective developers to benefit us, the members of Reston Association. I believe master planning is critical in guiding a community like ours. It provides us, the community, an avenue to implement the enhancements we desire while maintaining a reasonable budget. Further, I believe a casino does not have a place in Reston, and I will continue to oppose it. I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight and look forward to further introducing myself. Thank you.
Each candidate will now be given 1 minute and 30 seconds to answer the following question from the Elections Committee. What RA services or activities do you believe are most in need of improvement or change?
We will begin with the North Point District candidate, Michael Lonson.
Thank you, Brittany. As far as our amenities that I believe need the most improvement and upkeep would be our pools and trails. I think those are vital to what makes Reston Reston. And I think it's important that we continue to reinvest in these amenities and see how we can potentially expand them to meet the growing needs of Reston.
Yeah, I think it's an important question. If we look at the member survey that was done in 2023, we can see that the community really enjoys the use of the trails, the pools, and the natural open spaces. I think we should continue to reinvest in those. I think the pools represent one of the single biggest capital investments that we have, and also one of the greatest demand on resources for Reston. So it's something that I want to take a good look at and understand greatly.
Thank you.
Okay, we will now begin asking the questions previously submitted by RA members this evening. These questions have been electronically randomized and will be asked in no particular order. These questions were submitted by the membership, and as such, we cannot clarify or expand upon them in any way. Apologize. As a reminder for those joining on Facebook Live, if you would like to ask a question to the candidates, please type those in the chat. Keep in mind that if a question has already been asked, we will move on to the next one. Some other items of note for questions from the members. Questions must be relevant for all candidates. Members posing questions from the floor have 10 seconds to speak, and questions must be posed in the form of a question as opposed to a statement and must be open-ended. No question constituting a personal attack on any candidate will be allowed.
All right. Question number 2, what is your plan to stop RA subsidizing tennis courts? And we're going to begin with Matthew Lonta.
I'm sorry. Okay. The question was, what is the plan to stop RA subsidizing tennis courts?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, tennis courts are part of the RA budget. There's also income that comes from tennis lessons. But I believe tennis courts are a member benefit. So when you say subsidizing, I don't think it's a subsidy, it's a member benefit.
Thank you.
I think tennis courts are integral to what makes Reston, just like the other side amenities we offer. And it's one of the more active recreation devices we provide. I think it's important that Reston continues to improve these courts, as that was heavily mentioned within the community survey over the past year. Tennis has been on a rise, and I think it's important that Reston continues to facilitate it within our community.
I want to apologize for getting your name wrong there.
Okay. How will you support the total preservation of our trees and dynamic woodlands as an RA board member? Relatedly, what will you do to ensure that the floodplains and stream areas are protected and not adversely impacted by RA practices, homeowners' actions, businesses, and other entities within Reston?
And we're going to begin with Michael.
So starting off with the floodplain and resource protection areas near our many streams and water amenities, I think Reston Association should continue to support the county in their efforts in enforcing the Chesapeake Bay Ordinance, as well as their floodplain management ordinance, and that would prevent further downstream impacts that may be due to development or other homeowner activities. Similarly, I think it's important that Reston Association cares for its preserved open spaces, including the trees, shrubs, and other wildlife habitats that it offers. I think responsible forest management is something that should be looked at for our community, as it's integral to protect property from both damage and unsightly vegetation.
Thank you.
Well, I think environmental stewardship goes back to the founding of Reston and the founding principles of Reston. I think we recently, the management team recently hired an environmental director, Michael Reynolds, if I recall correctly. I look forward to meeting him and understanding his priorities. But certainly, the association owns, for the benefit of all members, 1,300 acres, 15 pools, 55 tennis courts, and there's a lot of environmental issues associated with owning that infrastructure. So I look forward to meeting with Michael, learning more about the concerns and providing guidance from a board position, but also understanding how the management team is approaching environmental stewardship as well.
All right, next question. How will you evaluate the CEO, monitor finances, and what is your knowledge of the RA budget process? Matthew.
All right. So again, back to my experience, I've been on or served and supported corporate boards of directors. The board owns the responsibility of understanding the CEO's objectives, how they execute, how they support the management team that they hire. And I think it's a responsibility that is bestowed upon the board. So take that job very seriously. Want to understand how the current board and the prior boards have set out those objectives and goals. And I'm sorry, there is more to that question.
Would you like me to repeat it?
Yes, please.
How will you evaluate the CEO, monitor finances, and what is your knowledge of the RA budget process?
Monitoring finances, as far as monitoring finances, there's a fiscal committee and a fiscal report that comes out on a regular basis. I look forward to understanding that fully and seeing how the ins and outs, not on a daily basis, but on a year-over-year basis happen. I think that's the role of the board of directors, is to understand the trends over years, not necessarily on a day-to-day process. And then the budget process is, begins shortly after the election, and I look forward to diving into it.
Thank you. Michael?
So I echo a lot of the viewpoints that my fellow candidate Matt mentioned. As far as monitoring finances, I think it's important that we look long-term when we go about doing anything with member funds, including the assessment. I think this is where master planning can really come in and help a community as a whole. If we know the direction we're going, we can plan for it. We can have gentle distributions in the assessment and not large spikes like we have seen over the past few years. Since I believe 2020, there was about a 25% or 20% increase in assessment. Additionally, when it comes to reviewing the CEO, I think it's important that we focus on community satisfaction, because at the end of the day, we're a community association. And I think if our community is flourishing and our CEO is heading in the strategic direction that our board and facilities need, as guided by our master plan, I think that is the basis for which we should assess. Thank you.
Thank you.
Reston is a biophilic community and has harmoniously integrated wooded neighborhoods with large interlinking public natural areas. Reston promotes its tree friendliness, yet there are numerous threats to our tree canopy and understory. Similar but different to the question previously asked, what will you do to support a healthy natural environment to include supporting native species and dynamic woodlands?
I'm going to start with Michael.
So I think tree management and forest management as a whole is very important to a biophilic community. Reston's been a tree city for a few decades now, and I think it's important we continue that trend, as that sets Reston apart from the other communities in Northern Virginia. We have vast open spaces, as Matt previously mentioned, about 1,300 acres, 55 miles of trails, 15 pools, and I think it's important that we maintain these facilities and the natural areas around them. As far as looking into ways, I'm sorry, could you repeat the second half of the question?
Yep. What will you do to support a healthy natural environment to include supporting native species and dynamic woodlands?
I think it's important that we look at the habitat as a whole and not just about the trees and aesthetic that comes to the community members, but also how it impacts the native species within our community, such as wildlife. Thank you.
Next question.
I think I need to jump
Sorry.
in. We'll keep it light here. Right? I echo what Michael said as well. I think the role for the board is, again, supporting the management team. We have an environmental director whose job is to put together and understand the environmental plan for the community. That said, I think this is an area that I can learn more, and I look forward to learning more about and engaging with the management team on.
Thank you. Now, next question. What is the personal goal you have for your 3-year term as a director? This is question number 6, so we're going to begin with Matthew.
All right, great. Look, I think first and foremost, I want to serve the community. That's my driving light here, is being part of the community and giving back. I know as I mentioned, I'm relatively new to Reston, but I think that it's never too early to get involved. And it's in the motto, live, work, play, and get involved. So that's my number one priority here. And I think number two is to provide oversight and serve the board function. I think there's an opportunity for us to really partner with the community and get out there and listen to the community and take that input back and have that input shape the priorities of the board and thus the management team. So, number one, members. Number two, bringing all of that back into the work of the board.
Thank you. Michael?
I agree with what Matt said about our number one priority being the members, and there are 4 pillars I'd like to look at for guiding my decision-making if elected as the North Point Board of Director. So the first would be enhancing Reston for everyone. I think it's important that we continue to maintain what was great about Reston for the past 60 years and see how we can translate that to the next 60 years. The second one would be having Reston continue to be a live, work, and play community. That is, again, fundamental to what makes Reston Reston, and I think that will continue to guide us in the correct direction. Third, I would defend our open spaces, natural water amenities, and trails. And fourth, I would pursue a budget that is focused on members and maintaining quality amenities while also looking to minimize member expense. Thank you.
Okay, question 7. How would you ensure that RA-owned lands and those of other land-owning entities within Reston also operate with a one Reston approach to the environment? Case in point is the spotted lanternfly invasion. Y'all, I'll have to say some of these words I don't know. Invasion that includes their laying eggs on their invasive host tree, the Ailanthus, thank you, that grows across Reston. These will impact hardwoods across Reston and impact large areas. So again, the question is, how would you ensure that RA-owned lands and those of other land-owning entities within Reston are also operate with a one Reston approach to the environment?
Okay. Question 7, we're going to begin with Michael.
Thank you. So as far as having Reston operate as one Reston, both the communities that are part of Reston Association and those that are outside of it, I think it's important that we work together as a team to preserve the environment, as this is what makes our community great. And additionally, I think it's important that we partner with Fairfax County in seeing how we can manage these invasive species, such as the lanternfly, and making sure it doesn't detrimentally impact our community.
Thank you. Matt?
Yeah, I'll share a story. Prior to moving to Reston, the house we had in Annandale, we lost a beautiful tree to an infestation. It's never a good thing. And really, when we called, there's no good answers. It's just something you had to deal with. It was a bark beetle. It's just something you had to deal with. I think our open spaces is a natural resource for Reston. We have to work together in partnership with the state, county, federal, where it makes sense, the forestry services, especially on invasive species to combat it. I know with the lanternfly there is no good answer, but there are other invasive species that there are good answers for. So again, I think going back to Michael Reynolds and getting a chance to meet him and learning about how Reston today is, how we're taking it, how we're already addressing it and understanding that, what we're going to do going forward.
Thank you. Question 8. How will you, as a board member, assist the interaction and cooperation of the Reston Association, HOA boards, and its members? We're going to begin with you, Matthew.
So when you say HOA boards, I'm assuming we mean cluster boards, other clusters, but I know you can't elaborate. So yeah, I think there's a a relationship between the Reston Association and the clusters. But it's not a direct relationship. I think it's a relationship of communication. But I think there's a role to reach out to other HOAs within and cluster associations within Reston, understand their input from their members, from their communities, bring it all back together again, back to member engagement and bringing the member's voice to the management team so that the management team can act.
Thank you.
Similar to what Matt said, I think open communication is important in facilitating these relationships between Reston Association and the various clusters within it. As far as strategies on how to continue to improve that relationship, I think it's important that the clusters have a clear dialogue with the Reston board and we're able to work together on accomplishing the goals.
Okay. The next question is, what will be your focus committee? So as you know, board members can sit on the subcommittees that are here. So I'm going to read you some of the committees. Covenants Committee, Elections Committee, Environmental Advisory Committee, Fiscal Committee, IT Committee, Land Use Advisory Committee, Legal Committee, Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee.
I'm going to begin with Michael.
So for the past few years, I've been on the Parks and Recreation Committee, and that has been a wonderful experience for myself. And leaning more on my professional expertise of land development, planning, and zoning, I think it would be a good fit to get involved with the Land Use Committee if there's that opportunity, and that would be what I'd pursue. Thank you.
So my day job, I'm an IT professional, so I'd say the IT committee would be a natural fit. But in addition to that, or maybe instead of that, I would jump onto the fiscal committee if there's an opening. I love numbers. I'd like to jump into the numbers. Yeah, that's where I see the best fit.
Thank you. Next question. This is a three-parter. So if you need me to repeat it, just let me know, okay? What is your position on opposing the casino proposal in the state legislature, opposing commercial development of the 2 golf courses, opposing the VDOT Soapstone Connector project until the VDOT plan includes satisfactory safeguards for increased traffic controls on neighborhood streets intersecting with Soapstone that were not part of the geographic area VDOT initially chose to study? It's a long question, so if you need me to repeat it, let me know. Okay? And so we're going to begin with you, Matthew.
Okay. Well, firmly oppose the casino. Just no ifs, ands, or buts. I think that's the community response. No casino in our neighborhood. The golf courses. I think golf courses are recognized open spaces, and I think it's vitally important that we preserve open spaces. And then the VDOT Soapstone Connector, if I recall, the plan for that impacts the golf courses. It's a connector that goes to, forgetting the street name, but it cuts through and creates a grid of streets, which impacts the golf courses. So back to point B, impacts the golf courses. I think it's something that we need to understand very closely before agreeing to.
I'm going to repeat the question for you. What is your position on opposing the casino proposal in the state legislature, opposing commercial development of the 2 golf courses, opposing the VDOT Soapstone Connector project until the VDOT plan includes satisfactory safeguards for increased traffic controls on neighborhood streets intersecting with Soapstone that were not part of the geographic area VDOT initially chose to study?
So starting off, as I mentioned in my opening statements, I'm firmly against the casino. I don't think that brings a reasonable benefit to outweigh the cons that also come with it to our community. I do think it's important that we have commercial development in Reston, as that is what allows Reston to be a live, work, and play community. But I do not think they should be replacing the active recreation spaces of our golf courses that we have. I think those are fundamental to why people enjoy Reston, and it's important to preserve those. And regarding the Soapstone Road connection, I think it's important that we're able to have an open dialogue with VDOT and discuss some traffic calming devices, such as curb bump outs or different signage that could allow for better pedestrian and bicycle network connectivity.
Thank you.
Thank you. What would you propose that will meaningfully educate, empower, and assist private homeowners to support a One Reston understanding of our total linked environment so that they can care for their trees and property which are connected to all of Reston's environment?
And we're going to begin with Michael.
Yeah. So regarding providing resources to the homeowners, about preserving our environmental resources and acting as One Reston, I think there could be opportunities to engage the community with resources like arborist information, maybe different techniques that can be used to preserve the trees and prevent excessive damage either due to construction or aging over time. And thank you.
So I think there's a couple ways to approach this. I think the board reaffirms the environmental commitment, and we need to work with the management team to engage the community in several different ways: social media, mailings, informational resources that the community clusters, other associations within Reston can use to help their planning efforts. I think it's important that we be more informed. So again, I'm gonna go back to having a conversation with the environmental director and learning more about the issue. But I really do think there is a community engagement piece here that comes from the association.
And I'm just going to remind everyone to speak into your mics so that the audience can hear you and those at home. Thank you.
Thank you.
Question 12. What would you do to help lower the annual assessment fee? We're going to begin with you, Matt.
Okay. Well, the assessment fee, I know that that's a perennial topic. And it's, Michael mentioned, it's gone up every year. I think there's a number of different drivers for that, and we should look at those drivers. Some of them are inflationary, so that's going to be really, really hard to tackle. Some of them are expansion of scope of services, so I think we need to take a look at the services that we provide. Generally speaking, though, I think the community survey suggests that we don't want to decrease the number of services. We don't want to reduce the number of pools. We don't want to reduce the amenities that we have. We don't want to sell resources in order to raise funds. So it's a hard question to preserve the assessment at a low rate. But I think that there's things that we can do. There's strategies with non-assessment revenues that we can look at. Things like camps, lessons, and value add back to the community that can help offset the cost of the assessment.
Thank you.
So I'd like to start by just correcting a previous statement I made regarding the assessment. I had the wrong numbers in my head. There was not a drastic increase over the past few years. But as Matt had mentioned, it has steadily increased along with inflation and just the cost of living in general. And I think something that can help maintain the annual assessment, if not potentially lower it, is look at master planning. This is a way we can plan our budget multiple years in the future by knowing what improvements may be coming up. That way it's not a surprise when something happens and we need to spike assessment the next year. We've been planning over the long term in order to address these issues. It would be a smooth, gentle curve.
Thank you.
We're on 13. Mm-hmm. Portions of Reston's 55 miles of asphalt paths need repair. Do you support funding a comprehensive plan to identify and repave all such pathway segments?
And we're going to begin with Michael.
So I believe our 55 miles of paved trails as well as our unpaved trails are important amenities to Reston and part of what makes Reston Reston. And I would be generally in support of looking how we can improve these and maintain their condition so they're usable by the next generation.
Yeah, I agree. We're frequent users of the trails. I have seen areas that the trails need to be improved, asphalt that's cracking or roots from the mature trees that have popped up. So it's part of the care and feeding and the long-term maintenance of all of our valuable assets. That said, I think trails is interesting. It's a common use amenity that you can't police. Nobody can, unlike a tennis court, you can't say, this is a Reston Association member, you can use it, or you can't use it. So I think that there's conversations to be had, and I look forward to understanding more from the existing board of directors. Conversations to be had with potentially Fairfax County about funds that can be used to help offset some of the costs of our general purpose amenities that are used by members and non-members.
Okay. Next question. As an RA member, how would you work to improve the quality of our natural areas and decrease air, light, noise, and water pollution in order to better provide access to a healthier place to live for all RA members? I'm going to begin with Matthew.
A lot of environmental questions. I like it. I think part of, for us, for my family, moving to Reston was a choice to get off of a busy road with a lot of light pollution, a lot of noise pollution. Moved to Reston, which is, I don't know if it's officially a dark sky community, but we definitely enjoy the dark skies. I'm not fully versed on all the different strategies that we can deploy. Again, I'm going to go back to saying I look forward to having that conversation with the environmental director.
Similar to what Matt said, I would also like to have a conversation with the environmental director regarding this and learn what we're actively trying to implement and see how we could potentially improve that. Regarding light, air, noise, and water quality, I think it's important that we consider this in all new developments within Reston and potentially looking at ways we can partner with the county on improving these within the TSAs and adjacent developments.
Thank you.
Reston is a highly desirable place to live. Keeping it that way takes investment in infrastructure and amenities. It also takes connection to members to promote understanding and willingness to support that investment. How would you address these needs?
And we're going to begin with Michael.
I'm sorry, could you repeat?
You want me to
the
repeat it?
question?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Nope. Reston is a highly desirable place to live. Keeping it that way takes investment in infrastructure and amenities. It also takes connection to members to promote understanding and willingness to support that investment. How would you address these needs?
Yeah, so leaning back on some of the pillars that would guide my decision-making as a board member, the first would be open and honest communication with our members, and also seeking feedback from them and our partners at Fairfax County and other surrounding municipalities and new developments.
Yeah, I think looking back again on the 2023, community survey, we can clearly see that there's essential infrastructure that the community prioritizes: the trails, the pools, the lakes, and I think we need to continue polling the community. We need to understand, both formally and informally, and bring that into the equation. We need to be planning years out, decades out, looking at our reserves to make sure we have enough to continue the fund the capital projects that are needed to replace the amenities as they age out. We are a 60-year-old community. A lot of our amenities are reaching their natural end of life. So it's an important planning process, and community involvement is key to that.
Thank you. Next question. Each year, the Reston Association Board must balance the community's needs and wants with the available funds from assessment fees. As a board member, how would you prioritize and advocate for the most effective use of these resources to meet members' needs? Additionally, how will you ensure the budget aligns with the membership's priorities?
Can I repeat my last answer? I think the 2023 survey was a great first or most recent step. It got the pulse of the community about what's important. It doesn't stop there, though. I think trends and things change. There are, I guess mentioning pickleball, for example, is a growing sport, and there's a lot of community desire for expanded pickleball resources. But that said, again, I think we should be thoughtful. We should look at a long-term plan, prioritize what the community does see as most valuable, and also look at ways that we can expand our membership base with a larger base, including the TSAs that Michael mentioned, the new developments. If we can increase the number of members, we can have more revenues that offset the cost of maintaining all of these amenities.
Similar to what Matt said about involving the TSAs and surrounding development, I think it's important that we advocate for new developments to become a part of Reston Association as they use our facilities, and it shouldn't be bare just on the members who are already part of Reston to make up for those. Additionally, I think it's important that we continue to pursue master planning as a community. And that would help with our budget and being able to plan long-term, and also having open communication with our members and incorporating their feedback into that master planning.
Thank you.
Okay, how would you approach reducing the association's budget without compromising essential services? Additionally, what specific areas do you believe offer opportunities for cost savings, and how would you prioritize those?
I think that's a very important concern and something that should definitely be looked at. After the election, I believe the budget cycle begins, and we will deep dive into the budget, and that will be something I keep in mind as we go through that process.
Yeah, I look forward to hearing from the RA staff, the management team, early on about what their priorities are and items that they've already identified for potential cost savings without reducing essential services. I also think we need to expand revenue opportunities, partnerships with corporations. There's a lot of development that has happened in the area, and I think there's opportunities to partner with those corporations. After all, their employees enjoy some of the amenities. Their employees live here. So there's opportunities there to explore. I mentioned the potential partnerships with the Virginia tax districts, trying to understand that a bit more. A lot of learning to do on my part. But at the end of the day, I think we need to advocate for fair offsets from any new development that takes place to help keep the budget in line with the amenities and with the members' expectations of services.
Thank you. What is your long-term vision for the association, and how would you balance the interests of such a large and diverse membership?
Love it. Yeah, if you look back the 60 years, Reston's growth has gone from 0 to 5,000 to 15 to 20. now 60,000 plus. We're a growing community. And I think long-term, Bob Simon and the Reston founding principles will continue to serve this community as we grow to 70, 80, and beyond. So I think there's a lot of good that has already been created and put down, and we double down on that. But at the same time, I think there's opportunities to grow with the growth of the community, to expand amenities, and to provide more services. But at the end of the day, we have to listen to the membership. We have to listen to what they want. And that's, I think, the job of the board of directors, is to be the eyes and ears and bring that back into the management team to execute.
I apologize for sounding like a broken record, but I believe master planning and community outreach are important to guide our next 60 years and see how we can improve upon the past 60 years. We have been a model community for other areas within the Commonwealth and country, and I think it's important that we continue to be a role model for those areas. And further, going off of what Matt was saying about communication and seeking feedback to continue growing. I think it's also important that we look at how other communities are addressing new issues and how we can incorporate that into the Reston way of life and continue having Reston as a live, work, and play community.
How do you plan to collaborate with other board members to make collective decisions that benefit the entire association?
I think that's very important as a strategic oversight board. And I think the first step would be having a board retreat. I know that's been pushed for in the past. And I think that'd be a good way for the potential new members, Matt and I, as well as the incumbent members, to get on the same page and understand what direction we're looking to head in and see where compromises can be made for the benefit of the community.
Yeah, I echo the board retreat. In my, I guess, business practice, I think it's important to get everybody in the same place at the same time, and have an opportunity to learn about the person as an individual in a non-work setting. So number one, I think it's important to get to know the board members in a way that's meaningful, understand what makes, what their drivers, what their goals are, and talk to each other like human beings, talk to each other with respect, with dignity. I think the board is comprised of 9 people who bring various different backgrounds together. Everybody should be heard, and at the end of the day, we come together to make a decision, and it's, every person has a vote.
Thank you. How would you, as a board member, remain focused on the priorities that matter most to its members, given the scale and complexity of operating such a large community? And we are going to begin with Matt.
Okay. Again, we kind of talked about the survey as a first step, but I think that there's additional opportunities for the association to tap into the pulse of the community. I think there's community forums like Nextdoor. There's Reddit forums where there's a lot of discussions around what's going on in Reston. There's social media that I don't know if we fully tapped into. I think there's an opportunity there. I know we have a communications director who's very good at telling story, but I think there's also a role for them to bring some of the lesson or some of the input from the community back in, not just for the board members to hear, but for the management team to really fully take in as well. So.
Could you repeat the question?
Sure. Where did that question go? Sorry. How would you, as a board member, remain focused on the priorities that matter most to its members, given the scale and complexity of operating such a large community?
I think open communication and continued engagement with the community is important to make sure the board and the association as a whole is heading in the same direction that the community wishes for it to. Similar to the large community survey we had over the past year, or 2 years ago now, I think it's important that we look to implement similar surveys and always ask for continued feedback from our members.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we'll now begin taking messages from the floor and Facebook Live feed. As a reminder for those of you who are joining us on Facebook Live, if you would like to ask a question to the candidates, please type your question into the chat. Please keep in mind that if a question has already been posed, we will move on to the next question. We have gotten 3 from Facebook Live already. I think 1 we've already answered. I'll also remind you of the rules again. Questions must be relevant for all candidates. Members posing questions from the floor have 10 seconds to speak. Questions must be posed in the form of a question as opposed to a statement and must be open-ended. No question constituting a personal attack on any of the candidates shall be allowed. So at this time, we're going to ask for folks in the room, if you have any questions, you can come up to the podium. Anyone? Anyone? Yay.
Okay, thank you. Should I say my name or? Okay, Tricia Wardino, 2060 Royal Fern Court. My question is for both of you. How would you say you substantially, if at all, differ from each other on an issue or more than one issue? And I'll sit down, thank you.
How do we substantially differ from each other?
We're going to begin with Mike.
I think we are very early on in our board relationship, and there may be bridges we cross where we find we have different views. And I think it's important that we always come back and address it with civility and understand where the person's coming from and seek to listen more than we speak. So far, I think we've done a fantastic job partnering, and I look forward to working further with Matt in the future.
I really couldn't have said it better than that. Truly, yeah.
Okay, we're going to ask a question from the chat. This question is from Catherine Baum. How would you work to ensure we continue to be I think we've already asked this question actually. We continue to be a biophilic community. So I think you've answered that several times this evening. The next question would be from the Dulles area Democrats. Can or should all new residential development be required to join RA? And we're going to start with you, Matt.
Okay. I think the key word there is required. That's an area that I couldn't answer specifically on required. I think we want to talk to the development. We want to talk to the developments early on in the process and have them at the table. We want to encourage all developments to participate in Reston, especially if they're going to be receiving and part of the benefit of the various amenities that we have, and especially the open spaces, and take care of the collective community that we have. But as far as specifically requiring them, I have to understand the legal requirements on that before I can answer.
Thank you.
So I believe it's important that new residential developments join RA as they take advantage of our many amenities, and I think the cost should be shared between the existing owners as well as the new owners or developers. As far as requiring the new developments to join RA, I think that would be challenging to enforce on our side, but I think it's important that we work with our partners at Fairfax County to incorporate proffers through the rezoning and development process, as well as other development conditions.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the floor?
Don't be shy. No? Okay.
Should we do that one?
Yep. All right. You want to ask that one?
Sure. What is one recent board meeting discussion agenda item that intrigued you? Why was this of interest to you, and what would have been your position on the item or the discussion that intrigued you?
And we are going to begin with you, Matt.
With me? Okay. So let's see, one board discussion point. So I've been watching the board meetings for the past 2 years. I think they're, it's part of when I moved to Reston to really try to understand how Reston works. It's lots of different conversations that go on in the board meetings. I think the conversation between the board and the management team around the strategy and how to implement the strategy. The board tasks the management team with developing a strategy, and the management team brings that back. And that discussion is very intriguing. And I think as we look ahead and as we start a new board cycle, I look forward to engaging in that conversation with the other board members.
Could you repeat the question?
What is one recent board meeting discussion or agenda item that intrigued you? Why was this of interest, and what would have been your position on that item if you had one?
I think there have been lots of great discussions at the past board meetings, and it's hard to pinpoint just one, as well as coming up with one on the spot is a little difficult. But going back off what Matt said, the conversation and the relationship between the board and the management team, I think it's important to foster that open communication and working together as one front. And that way we're able to achieve our goals and keep the community such a great place to live, work, and play.
Okay. As we approach the conclusion of this forum, I'd like to express my gratitude to the audience, both on Facebook Live and here in the room.
Got another question?
Oh, wait, we have a question.
Just came through.
I lied, we're not concluding.
Okay. Just in the nick of time.
I know, right? Okay, are you familiar with the overpopulation of white-tailed deer in Reston and the effect of the environment? And given any thoughts to mitigating its effects? So dealing with the white-tailed deer.
I think that is a very challenging issue, and that is something I would want to speak with the environmental director, as well as seeing what our partners at Fairfax County are looking into on addressing that issue. Thank you.
Just a funny story, my daughter had that exact same conversation point in her 7th grade class. So I did not help her with her homework, so I'm not prepared to answer specifically, but she could probably answer it. Yeah, look, white-tailed deer, I don't have a good answer. I think there's probably no good answers to controlling populations of wild animals. So I'd go back to having a conversation with the environmental director and learning more myself.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions?
We're gonna
I have
ask
a
everyone.
comment. I've been told by my 7th grader that the white-tailed deer are not overpopulated based upon her research. You see a lot with overhunting.
There you go.
Thank you. Looks like we may have another.
Oh, wait, we have another question.
And it's for anybody. It is in the RA documents. Rich Badley, 12114 Corn Lane. What is EVP? And I reference it Keep the board and the EVP informed of community concerns. Well,
It is Executive Vice President.
is it?
It should be.
Why would that be?
That's now
Okay.
CEO, though.
I know, it is now the
It was in the
CEO.
document and it wasn't spelled out, so I didn't want to assume. Thank you.
Okay.
We have one more question coming in from Facebook Live. Many board meetings are 4 to 6 hours, with large portions of the meeting being an executive session. How do you plan to play a role in ensuring the meetings are transparent and not more than 2 to 3 hours long? We are going to we're going to begin with you, Matt.
Okay. That's an excellent question. Again, I've been watching the board of directors meetings for the last 2 years after moving to the area. And I agree, the meetings are long. There's a long pause for the executive session. And then there's a flurry of motions that occur immediately after the executive session. That's by design in a certain way, but it leaves a lot to be desired to the members when there's not transparency. I can understand some of the rationale, but I think we need to bring some of the conversations where it makes sense out from behind the executive session, or bring greater transparency about exactly what is being discussed, maybe not the details, but at least have some openness so that the members understand what is being discussed.
I think that is a very difficult hurdle. It was actually one of my largest concerns when thinking about running, was looking at these 4, 5, 6 hour meetings on a work night and getting up and going to work. But I'm excited to tackle that challenge, and I think a way that we could control meeting length is having a more detailed agenda. But this is also something I'd want to discuss more with other board members and see what their thoughts are on controlling our meeting lengths and limiting our executive session to when it's absolutely necessary.
Thank you. And I don't see any additional questions coming from Facebook Live. I'll give it another moment. I think that's all the questions we have from Facebook. Is there anyone in the room this evening that would like to make a final comment? No?
Okay.
Just wait for you all to wrap up. Everybody did a super job, frankly. Congratulations to all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We're not done. So as we approach the conclusion of the forum, I want to thank everybody on Facebook Live for their questions, and the folks in the room for their questions, and the candidates for your thoughtful responses. If there are any remaining questions that have not been addressed this evening, we encourage you to contact the candidates directly via email addresses provided on the screen. And we're going to put them up one by one. Or, at reston.org, or the ballot guides that will be going out, which will accompany your ballots being mailed out tomorrow, February 26th. The candidates will now have allotted 4 minutes each for their concluding remarks.
And we are going to begin with Michael.
I would like to start by thanking the Reston Association Election Committee, staff, and the community as a whole for the opportunity to speak here tonight. I hope I was able to share some insight on my experience, goals, and perspective. When I moved to Reston, I was unsure what to expect. Over the past few years, I have learned Reston is a place for everyone to thrive, and I want to ensure this atmosphere is continued for the next generation. Reston is a live, work, and play community, and I am excited to see Reston continue to be a role model for other communities throughout the Commonwealth and country. Budget awareness, open space preservation, and master planning are the pillars that I believe will continue to facilitate Reston's live, work, and play atmosphere. Thank you all for attending, and thank you for considering me, Michael Lanza, for the North Point Board of Directors seat. I welcome any and all questions at Lanza, 4, Reston, @gmail.com. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate everybody coming out tonight and having this conversation with us. Thank you again to the Elections Committee, putting on a great production here. Appreciate the hard questions. Reston is a unique and thriving community, but we face important challenges, from rising costs to aging infrastructure and ongoing development pressures. Now more than ever, we need governance that is fiscally responsible, forward-thinking, and committed to preserving the qualities that make Reston special. With my experience in community association governance and public company boards, I bring a strong foundation in strategic planning, financial oversight, and transparent decision-making. If elected, I will work to ensure that the board listens, engages, and makes thoughtful choices that reflect the needs of our diverse community. My family and I are deeply invested in Reston's future, and I'm committed to making sure it remains a place where we can all live, work, play, and get involved. I'd be honored to serve and earn your vote. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you all for attending this evening. Voting begins on Friday, February 28th at 5:00 p.m. Please remember that election ballots must be received by the counting agency in Telescan no later than 5 p.m. on Monday, March 31st. Members may cast their votes by mail or online. If a replacement ballot is needed, please contact the counting agency at 610-935-6170 or email restonelection@intelliscaninc.com. Thank you again and have a good night.